intro really quick again because we have two segments now. We've got a part 1 and part 2. Here's
This is True OF Entertainment.
Well, here we go. It's the man that promises you nothing and delivers. It's the veritable man motor mouth. It's Road Woods who feels the need to call himself Rob Vega. It somehow makes him feel important. Anyway, do have a listen and try not to throw up.
all right, kids, we're back. So
Okay. So I don't know what happened there. We got cut off. I think we were getting. You almost feel like someone's listening and says, "Hang on, that's getting a bit too sensitive."
yeah, well, they're gonna love this next part. So there you go. So this
Now
will
we're
be
gonna love
part
this next
2.
part. This will be part 2. All
So
right.
for the
So
people,
all
really
right.
quick, the people on the podcast that missed part 1, you'll have to just catch that on YouTube, and the part 2 will be the longer version that will put out YouTube as well,
Right.
but it'll also be a
I'll
podcast. So
summarize.
this is the podcast one. If you missed part 1, then you have to go watch it on YouTube. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, I'll catch up. So I was saying that you've got these guys in the White House and the whole group. They want to help all these white farmers, and ostensibly, and you've got a bunch of refugees, whatever you want to call them, migrants, whatever, that are there now, and very nobly they want to help them, and everybody's brought their receipts to that meeting at the White House. Okay, so their intention is to help these guys. That would be fair to say. They want to help them. They want to reach out to them. They want to make sure they're not, killed in this so-called genocide thing that they've heard. Would that be fair? Yeah, you with me?
Yes, that would be fair.
Good. So their intention is to help them. So what they do is they come to the White House, they sit down with the South African president, and they present their research, which can be pretty much debunked in seconds. Okay. So what you do is, we mentioned earlier in the other podcast, the broadcast, that there are in fact a lot of things that people need to be concerned about with respect to what is happening in South Africa. I mentioned some of the employment laws, the background, the murders, the rapes, all of this stuff. Big issues that affect everybody, by the way. So those need to be discussed. It would be great if someone was a voice for all of that. But anyway, this one thing has been picked on. Yes, people have been murdered, and yes, there have been white, and yes, there have been farmers. Okay, good. That's bad, by the way. Whether it's one person, everyone loves figures. They love figures. So whether it's one person or a million, does it matter? If it's your mother or father, it might as well be the whole world. Okay. So murder, bad. Farm, remote, dangerous. No argument there. But the way it's been, so they sit down, and then Trump presents this stuff that somebody has given to him, which, if it was evidence that had been researched, I would have supported that. The things that I mentioned, the employment equity laws, the rapes, the murders, the high crime rate, the high unemployment rate, and I'll get onto the things that I have big issues with regard to this government here. Big. Definitely. There's a lot that he could have attacked them on. Big time. That is the evidence is there. Plenty of it. But he picked on this. So what happens is he presented all this information, and I love reading comments, because on both sides, left and right, and I hear things like, "Oh, that photograph wasn't in South Africa; it was in Goma in the DRC," and then someone else says, "No, that photograph was actually in Newcastle, KZN in South Africa." Both of those people are right, and both of those people are wrong. Let me explain. So the one still of the thing that he held up was all those people in those white coats helping people. Guys from the Red Cross. You remember that? Remember that thing he held up? Right. That's from the DRC. There was a massive massacre there, women and children, whatever. I'm not going to get into what it was, why it happened. There's been a lot of stuff that's gone on there. Not going to comment. Why? Because I'm not in the DRC. I don't have all the facts. But that particular thing, whether it was a grab from a YouTube video, whether it was a photo, I don't care. It's not from South Africa. So that's from the DRC. There was another picture of all those crosses, that video. And somebody took it, looked like drone footage. It was drone footage of all those crosses. And Trump said these are burial sites. The world's tiniest burial sites. honestly.
Right.
Okay. Here's what happened on that particular one. This I do know. I do know. There was a couple murdered. There was a farm murder there. Bad. Not good. And people were protesting about it. They launched this massive protest about that farm murder and tons of others. Okay? And they planted all these crosses as a memorial, as a form of protest to show their support, their solidarity for these people that had been brutally murdered. Okay. So the point is, people were killed and there was a tribute being paid to them.
Right.
That's a fact. Now, if you present it as something else and say these are burial sites of all the thousands of murders, easy to debunk. So what happens is, if you're sitting on the other side of the world and you see that video, and then someone presents you with evidence to show that that's fake, you think the entire thing is bullshit. It's not entirely bullshit. But the problem is a very important message has now been lost. You see what happens when you don't get all the facts. You come across as non-credible, and then anything important that really needed to be spoken about is just swept under the rug. So what has happened now is that you were trying to help those people, and you've literally given not you, Steve, you've given tons and tons of fuel and power to the other side. That's what you've done. So if a white, let's just use the language. If a white Afrikaner farmer decides he's had maybe his family was killed and he managed to escape, and that does and has happened. To what extent? Not commenting, but that has happened. And he decides enough is enough. He applies for refugee status in the US. Based on that, he feels under threat, which he's entitled to. And he says, this is what's happened to me. You get some clown that, no, this is all bullshit. We've seen this thing that you're all getting slaughtered. We've seen that video. That was just a memorial. It's not happening. So you've shot him down. So anything that he might have been able to claim has now gone, because you've got clunk that sits there with smoke and mirrors, making an absolute ass of himself in front of the South African president, presenting evidence that is clearly bullshit. That evidence is bullshit, but it's still going on. There is still bad things going on. So you've undone your case entirely. That's what you've done. Yes, your base, your supporters got, we showed them. You've shown nothing. You've shown, why don't you get proper facts and actually nail? Then you could have nailed him. You could have nailed Ramaphosa easily. But why would you pick that? Why would you pick that?
Because sensationalism is what we do now.
I didn't know any better. Sorry, if I didn't know any better, and I do know better, but if I didn't know any better, it's almost as if, I know this didn't happen, but it's almost as if Ramaphosa said, hey, Don, listen, I'm going to send you some fake bullshit. I want you to ambush me, and I want you to present it to me because it's bullshit, and then I'm going to look good. Job done. Okay. He couldn't have played more into his hands. Oh, I looked at some of the right-wing media. Yeah, he owned Ramaphosa. No, he fucking didn't. Grow up. He did not. He presented some fake bullshit to a visiting dignitary. He made a shit show, total disrespect for what the Oval Office is. I'm not even an American, and I was embarrassed for the whole thing. What is this? When do elderly men do shit like that? Get behind closed doors, have a civil conversation, pretend to like each other. It's called diplomacy. He manages to do it with Putin very well. Why can't he do it with Ramaphosa? Okay.
Because Putin wouldn't put up with that crap.
So
Zelensky and then
he wouldn't put up with it.
Yeah, Putin would never put up with that shit. He told Trump to go fuck himself.
Yeah, so Steve, the point I'm trying to make is that, and Ramaphosa said, I don't have a plane for you. My point is that if you really wanted to help, then help. Then get all the information, get involved. All you doing by presenting that bullshit is actually, if anything, you're endangering those people. You are. You absolutely are. You've done them a disservice. So you think you're helping, but you've completely screwed it up. So rather shut the fuck up or get all the facts. Now I want to just say something here. I'm going to attack the other side now. I love attacking. Brilliant. I don't mind. I'm not saying I know everything. Right. So just to step back, my feeling is in this life, whatever your religious or non-religious belief is, I think we can get to some agreement that perhaps part of our purpose in life
Right.
is awareness. We grow up
Sure.
and we hopefully learn stuff. Okay,
Right.
we learn stuff. We learn what makes us happy, how to treat other people. If we're a psychopath, that doesn't apply. But essentially, as human beings, and
Right.
we chatted about the race thing. I don't really believe in it, but whatever. Tribal, it's good for politics.
All right.
But as human beings, we as fathers, as members of the human race, one race, we hopefully, as we get older, we learn about other cultures. We don't have to accept them. We don't have to
Right.
subscribe to them. We go, oh, that's a thing. Oh, look at that food. Oh, look at that person. What a nice beach. What a nice mountain. The world's amazing. Oh, there's a shit show here. There's good things here. It's called perspective. You start to get more perspective of what we really are and how fucking minuscule we are in the universe. I'm not even getting into religious beliefs. Not talking about that. But I think we can agree that we have to learn stuff, to find out, to learn, to whatever. Now, part of that is that you've heard it said, an opinion is fine as long as it's an informed opinion. Because what opinions do, opinions lead to emotion, which lead to judgment, which can lead to conflict, which can lead to big problems. So the point is, if you have an opinion, which is a very powerful tool, it needs to be informed. Otherwise, it's a dangerous thing. Now, let me talk about what happened in this country. So prior to 1994, we had a thing called apartheid. And no one that
in
I
all the papers, by the way.
Yeah. And it's apartheid. It's not apartheid. It's apart and hate. Like, I don't like you. Apartheid.
Right.
Apartheid. That's what it is. Separateness. Now, it's the tragic consequences of that policy were there, evident. Hence sanctions, hence a global effort to eradicate it. At the time, I came here towards the end as it was wrapping up, and then lived through the transition and then first democratic elections. And it was a pretty exciting time as the country changed.
Right.
Got over that, dispensed with that. But at no point, even I remember there was a state of emergency in 1986 when I was very young, but everybody thought, this apartheid thing is going. The kids, the people I was a part of, the younger generation were like, no. When these old fuckers are gone, goodbye. We knew that. We just knew it was going. No one at the time of my generation thought, yay, no one. Okay. So it was on the way out culturally, in terms of how society worked. How we were going to deal with the ramifications afterwards, we didn't know, but we knew it had to go. Okay, that was the sense in the 80s and into the early 90s. Then obviously February the 11th, 1990, I remember that date very well. Nelson Mandela, Madiba, was released, and that set the ball rolling and things got going. Okay, and then in 1994, 27th of April 1994, we had our first democratic elections. And there we go. Click, click.
Right.
Prior to that, those elections happened because, I'm just going to call it what it is, only white voters were allowed to vote before that.
Right.
And a referendum was held, and about 60-70%, I think it was about 67% of the white population said, get rid of it. So they did. So that meant 33% thought, please leave it. Now, that 33%, I can quite honestly tell you, we're of an older generation. They're in Australia, the UK, or you've got some of them there. They're certainly not here, or they are dead. Okay.
Right.
The point is, the 67% of white folk, which were essentially younger folk and people with a brain, are still here. So they wanted to be a part of whatever the new country was. Okay. You're going to go, what's it got to do with the bullshit at the White House? I'm getting to that. So everybody in South Africa kind of banded together on the 27th of April, 94, and said, right, let's do this. The ANC got in, and they were handed the keys to the castle. There you go. The National Party, which was the apartheid government, they owned everything. They were the dominant, whatever. They were the government of the day. There they were. And they said, there you are. The keys are yours. Have at it. At that point, that new administration had a task of resetting the country, growing things, building. starting afresh, bringing people together, educating, building. All right. They had all the they had the taxpayer base, billions. They had access to everything. To use an American terminology, they had the nuclear codes. And at that time, I think we still were a nuclear country. Anyway, the point is they had all the power. They were in charge. They were the boss. Yes, it happened to be a black majority government because that's the demographics of the country. So what? Doesn't matter. I think I might have actually voted for them at that point. Okay. So everyone was like, let's do this. We're sick and tired of being isolated. Let's do this. Go. There you are. So, and the rest of the world were very happy. Oh, the Rainbow Nation, it's all gone well. There was no civil war, blah, blah, blah. What a miracle. And everything was great. Right. And then a couple of things happened. The world disappeared. The global community went. They left. They left. And now you had a group of people. I don't give a shit about color. I've said that before. You had a group of people that had assumed office that had no background in government. No background in administration. There had been a liberation movement, quite rightly so, to get rid of apartheid. But now they were in the castle. They were the kings. And they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. I wouldn't have known what I was doing. Why would you? If you said to me, Steve, pick a company in the States. I don't know, Dell, go, run it. In 3 months, they'd be bankrupt, maybe a week, because I don't know how to run a company. I don't have the experience. I would need the management. I would need, presumably they'd appointed me because I'm good looking, but they would need to stick around and say, this is how things are done. And I would need a lot of support. I would need a lot of support. So this government needed that support. It didn't get it, but they didn't think they needed it. They said, now is our time. So there was a bit of a revenge mentality there, which at the time I understood. I understood that. It was an oppressed majority. Now you're the kings. Good. But the point is they were in charge. These guys, these leaders were in charge. And they got into that office. And instead of doing the building thing, they had such an opportunity to grow, to build, to work. I mean, in 1995, the following year, okay, Madiba was still the president. Those first 4 years were kind of okay. I have to say there was some reconciliation that went on. Things opened up. Had the country transformed economically? No, not yet. Okay, but there was an opportunity to train, to improve education, extend opportunities to everybody, which is what they should have done. Anyway, so we even won the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup in '95, and it was a gorgeous moment in the country's history. Literally at that point, everyone went, you see, this color thing is bullshit. And it is bullshit, by the way. It is.
I agree.
And we're like, okay, cool, done. All right. We're gonna get together and we're gonna build something amazing. Look at this great country. And it is a fantastic country. It's beautiful. It's big. It's got, in my view, one of the best climates in the world. It's got platinum, gold, diamonds, fuck everything. Space, a relatively small population for the size, beautiful coastline, everything, all the toys. So they had all the toys, the country, the people, the works done. And within a couple of years, they expunged, is that the word? Expunged all the white management from a lot of the state companies, just got rid of them. Goodbye. No transition, no thought of a transition. Hey, John, stick around, stay in your office. We're going to put our guy next to you and you're going to teach him and you're going to stay. But we don't want your skill to leave. Your skill needs to stay, but it takes time to transfer that skills. And don't worry, John, we're not threatening the way you look because we want your kids to stay. We want you to be a part of what we're doing. Nope, that's not what they did. Within a short space of time, they created these laws that were politically expedient. I understand why they put them in, but it didn't change. It changed maybe 1 or 2 million people's lives. There are 60 million people in the country. So the majority of the black folk that they wanted to help, they said, fuck you, we've got the power now. We'll get our buddies in. And that's what they've done. If you look at South Africa today, none of that training was done. None of that building was done. Great. A lot of laws were passed and a lot of our leaders are filthy rich. Ramaphosa is a billionaire. His brother-in-law is a billionaire. right? They've got money coming up the wazoo. What the fuck does he know about ordinary people? Nothing. Zero. He forgot where he came from. If anything, he should have understood the history. And he, whatever. So the point is, these guys got in and they trained no one. And then in 2000, now let me just spool forward to today. So what has happened now, because I could go on, and people don't want to hear that. What has happened now in 2025 is all those opportunities for building, educating, gone. So what it means, I love the stat that's been passed around. They talk about how there's this white minority that still control the economic landscape.
Right.
No one stopped the black majority from moving in. No one. Do you know who stopped the black majority from moving in? Do you know who stopped the black majority from being educated and getting ahead? The black majority.
Yeah, the black majority stopped
Not
themselves.
the white folk. I can tell you now, the group that I'm a part of welcomed the change. They wanted to see it. They wanted to see the benefits being extended, the things that people had been denied. Everybody should have that option. But no, that's not what happened. It was like, all you people with your skills, go. I was too young. I wasn't a part of that. But they told all these people, go, get lost. So those particular state organizations fell apart. Of course they would. There's nothing to do with color. They didn't know what they were doing. I wouldn't have known what I was doing. I would have bankrupted it probably quicker. So you've got all these state entities that are bankrupt, that are broken, that are finished. They could have created things with that. They could have created jobs. They could have extended opportunities to people, but it never happened. That was gone. So now we have a leader who sits in the White House, and he comes back here as well and says, I want to extend these racial laws because the echoes, the evidence of apartheid is still sprayed across the country. Of course it is. Of course the white minority still control the economic landscape, not because they stopped anyone, but the ANC and the government of the day did nothing to change any of it at all. Zero. They educated no one. You have massive rural black communities who, it's appalling the conditions they live in. And people say, oh, but what about the reparations? The ANC have controlled the tax base. The majority of taxpayers are probably white. So I give my taxes to the government. What do they do with it? Do they build schools? Do they train? I would have no problem if they took, even if they said, we're going to tax you 50%, we're going to take that money and we're going to help people. No problem. That's fine. Build schools, fix communities, extend opportunities, train people, do something. They did nothing. They enriched themselves. They extended. The famous thing they do now is they'll put out a tender, and then their friends will bid on the tender and win the tender. So it's a small group of people, just like Trump has a small group of people. Like I said, Cyril and Donald are the same people. So they extend it to their small group of people. The majority of black people, totally out. They've benefited zero from the so-called change. I actually said something to a colleague of mine in the newsroom at the station where I work, the radio station I work. I said to her, and she happens to be a young black woman, by the way, super smart, just became a young mother, and we got on well. She's my newsreader. Lovely, lovely, smart woman, very switched on. And I said to her, I want to bounce something off you. And I mean, coming from someone like me, it might be taken the wrong way, but I am of the view that the current ANC government, the current South African government, hates black people just as much as the National Party did. And she went, yes, I agree. Wow. And I'll tell you why I say that. Because this government that we have, the way they treat the majority of people who happen to be black people, they think they're all stupid. They're not going to figure out that they're stealing their money. They're stealing everything. They're not fixing things. You can look up, we've got the Eastern Cape province of this country is a shambles. Nothing works. Oh, well, it's black people. But who's in charge? Black people. That's the thing that's crazy about it. So it's not race, it's power. It's about power. So as I said to you a couple of podcasts ago, take race out of the South African picture, and then you start to find out what's really going on. What's really going on. We've got our own Donald Trump, and his name is Cyril Ramaphosa. Yeah, he's got a slightly different personality, but he's all about serving himself, enriching himself, looking after his buddies. They don't give it. If Ramaphosa drove through Joburg the other day. You know, we've got the G20 coming to South Africa, I think in October, November. You know about that.
Yep.
We're hosting the G20. Right. So he takes a drive. He takes a drive through Joburg, which and some of the areas around Joburg, and he goes, oh my God, it looks terrible. Yes, fucker. This is what your people have done. And when I say your people, the ANC government, they've stolen all the money. They've handed it to their buddies. They've done fuck all. Nothing. And then you got the balls to stand up and say, wow, the vestiges of apartheid still remain. Yeah, because you kept it going. You got into the the castle and you went, hang on a second. This is actually very nice being in charge and having access to this money. I think I'll keep it. I'm not going to. It's just extraordinary. And people, they keep talking about all the white people who own the land and the white people who run the economy. No one is stopping anyone else from being a part of that. We have all these laws that was supposed to help black folks, black economic empowerment, what it's called. Yes, but you still need to train people. You still need to educate people. And they've done none of that. Zero. I mean,
you don't want to do that.
The corruption, exactly. You don't want them to
you don't want them to become smart and literate because then they'll know what you're doing.
Hang on. In defense of this large, because, you know, I've gotten to the point where I'm so sick and tired of color. The majority of black folk in this country, they're not stupid. They're not stupid at all. There's some super bright people. We've got some, I mean, amazing people. You can go to the back end of the back end in this country and talk to a guy.
But my point on that, my statement, but I say that though.
I will go there with maybe a friend of mine who speaks some of the language. I can speak some of the languages slightly, but you go to someone, you speak to him or her with their language, and you will find out there's a shitload going up in here. But they don't have the background, they don't have the education, and because they don't have the education, the opportunity is denied to them. And who did that? Who failed people? They have been the boss. And for you to be running a company for 31 years and then turn around and say, oh, it's the previous boss's fault. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on. You have been in charge. You have controlled the purse strings for 3 decades. Look at what China's done in 10 years. Okay? Look at what can be done with money and resources. I'm not saying we're China, but this is not. I hear it being often, people say, South Africa's a poor country. No, it is not. There's a massive McLaren dealership here. There is Lamborghinis, there's Ferraris. There is massive money here, big money. But it will not share itself with a government or an authority that just wants to take from it. So if you're a particularly wealthy investor and you want to come here, right? And you have to part with all kinds of, oh, we want 30%. Why? Why must I give your country and your people 30% of my company? I will be coming to your country. I'll be investing and do what you want. We'll create jobs together. We'll employ South Africans. We'll do whatever. But my shares, fuck you. Those are mine. Okay? It's my company. And
we went through that. You know that. We went through that 2 or 3 years ago in your country when we came.
This is what impacts the country's growth. And there's this feeling that the entire world is responsible for what happened. No, not even the white folk. Most of the white folk left here are
he got cut off again. The South African government doesn't love him.
Responsible. You are. You're responsible. If you're in charge. Oh, are we back? Good. Okay, they're not loving what we say.
We're 50-50. We're 50-50
that's the
on
thing.
the back.
That's the thing that's really so. Okay, so I've nailed both sides. So the point of what else do I want to say to you? So this is what I want to say. I see on all these forums, people say, "Oh, I'm a white South African, and yes, genocide's taking place." Or another one, "Oh, I'm a white South African, no genocide's taking place." So if you're not from here, if you're not from South Africa, and you're looking at this going, "What the fuck is going on?" Allow me to explain. It is my lived experience, and I've been here quite a long time. I've spent the majority of my life here. And here's what I would say to you. People get murdered on farms. They get murdered in cities. They get murdered in townships, which is like squatter camps, whatever. There are a lot of black people that get affected by crime, more than white people, because of the demographics. Okay. But on the farm murder thing, because everybody's camped out on that, I watch these right-wing podcasts where suddenly a guy from Nashville knows everything about South Africa. It's fucking extraordinary what he knows. I'm amazed. I mean, his knowledge blows me away. But this is my lived experience. I've lived here. I know a lot of farmers, a lot of people, black, white, colored, Indian. By the way, colored in this country is okay. It's not the colored like it is in America. It actually is a group of people who call themselves colored, not American colored, South African colored.
Gotcha.
The full title is a Cape colored. Okay, whatever, or just colored. And if that's what they want to call themselves, then who am I to fucking argue? Okay, right. So I've known a lot of people, and I've experienced not too much crime myself, but I've seen the effects of it. I know of people who've been murdered on farms in cities. I've seen it. I've not seen it. I've spoken to families that have lived it. So the farm murder thing is bad. Farms are remote. They are dangerous. They are vulnerable. Now, is it a black-white thing? No. And I'll tell you why it isn't. Because on most farms, you'll have a farmer. Let's just say he's white. Most of the farmers are white. There are black farmers. Let's say the farmer's white. Let's go down that lane. So he's a white farmer. Okay. And let's just say he happens to be Afrikaans. Whatever. Let's just drill down on that stereotype and that thing, because everybody seems to talk about that. All right, let's say that's who he is. And he managed, and in fact, I know one guy who escaped from a farm. His entire family was wiped out. Bad. Oh, surely then, are you not saying that farmers are getting murdered? Yeah, they are getting murdered, along with everybody else, along with all the workers. And why did they get murdered? Poverty, opportunity. Why do people rob farms? Why do they murder people? Now, this is the part I want to talk about. But there is an element, and this is true. There are a lot of, I would hardly call it a majority. There is a minority, just like there are a minority of white people, there's a minority of black people who are angry at white people. They are very, absolutely. That thing that Donald played in the White House, kill the boer, not good. I agree. I'm not a fan of that song. I don't think it's relevant for 2025. I don't think it's relevant to 2025, and it should not be sung. So they'll say things to you like, oh, it's a struggle song. All right. Yeah. If I was 65 years old and I was part of the struggle and I was a black guy, fair play. But what if I'm 30? If I'm 30 years old and I'm singing that song, I have never known apartheid, ever. I didn't grow up in apartheid. So what am I struggling against? So the words of that song are pretty literal as far as I'm concerned. And I've been told by various leaders that white people own all this land and they own they're a big part of the economy, both of which are actually true. But the reasons are not what you think they are. Okay. So now I need someone to blame, and I've been given someone to blame. So here I am, I've got no money, it's the middle of the night, and there's a farmer, he's white, and he's got money, let me kill him. Sure, it does happen. But who spurred me on to do that? Where did I get that information from? Who told me to do that? Why am I in that situation? Why am I economically disadvantaged? Who has taken away my growth opportunities? Who's done that? Who has chased away investment? Who has chased away talent that could have built companies that would have created growth? Who the fuck has done that? And I can tell you now, it's not people who look like me in this country in 2025. And even if every single one of us wanted to do something, we're such a minority in the country, it wouldn't have any effect. Done, finished. And I want to say one final thing, and then you can respond. I often hear people in this country, they talk about the party I happen to support, which is not perfect, but it is the opposition party. It's not the EFF, by the way, the guy who was singing that song. The EFF is a minority party. They got 8, 9, 10%, maybe, tops, not even. The DA is well over 20%. So it's a much stronger party. And the latest polls put them neck and neck with the ANC. So maybe in the next election, they get in. Not because I'm a massive fan of the DA. I'm not. There's a lot of things wrong with it. But it's better than what we've got. And the other parties available they're just steeped in racist bullshit where I wouldn't have a part in it. So why would I be a part of that? So I hear people saying, oh, the DA is a white party. Okay, I just want to set the record straight on that. The ANC combined with the National Party, there was like a government of national unity after the 94 election. The previous president was Prime Minister or President was F.W. de Klerk. Mandela and de Klerk won the Nobel Peace Prize, I think, in 94, 95 because of the transition of South Africa. It was a thing. It was a big deal. But both of them won a Nobel Prize, and the world was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." So for a while, he joined and Nelson Mandela didn't have to do this, but as a gesture of reconciliation, he reached out unbelievably to the former apartheid party of de Klerk and said, "Come join the government of national unity as a minority player." Brilliant. Right. Okay, absolutely brilliant. But then after that, the parties combined. So the ANC basically absorbed, to some extent, the National Party, the White Party. The DA came from the Progressive Federal Party, which was an anti-apartheid party. They were very anti the National Party, and they later became the Democratic Party and then became the Democratic Alliance. Other parties joined them. So what I'm trying to say is if anybody's a white party, it's the ANC, which they're not. The DA is not a white party, but it has people of all kinds of colors. I mean, we've got a mayor down the road. His name is Solium Samanga, and he is very definitely the color of my glasses case. A super smart man,
right?
But he's definitely not white. And they keep talking about how the DA is going to bring back apartheid. Well, that's bullshit. Because the guy who's the leader of the DA right now, not my first choice, by the way, John Steenhuisen. I personally think he's an idiot as well. But, politicians, they're a better, but that's not the point. But there he is. He's 48 years old. John Steenhuisen is 48 years old, which means he was like 16 when apartheid changed. So we had nothing to do with it. Why would he bring back apartheid? In fact, he was part of our generation, which hated the thing. Let's get rid of it. No one's going back there. But this is what they say to people. They say, these white guys own everything. They own the land. They want to bring apartheid back. And that's all bullshit because they're trying to distract you from the fact that they've done nothing. So what I'm trying to say is that if this element in the US wanted to help others, they would make sure that if they presented facts in the White House, which was on a global stage, they would be accurate. There's plenty that Trump could have attacked Ramaphosa on. White genocidal farm murders with fake white crosses, that wasn't it. And that's the problem. So the message that we wanted to get out has been upended by that bullshit that Trump pulled in the White House. Bullshit. Because it was bullshit. It was total bullshit. And now, on the other side of the couch, you saw Ramaphosa looking smug because he knew it was bullshit. So he didn't have anything to worry about. So he's fun. So you've actually made him look stronger. You've actually made him look good. Personality aside, because Ramaphosa is quite a reserved, I'll give him that. He's a good negotiator. He's very reserved. He's a very, he talks very calmly, Mr. President. He's very calm. He's relaxed. He looks presidential. I'll give him that. He's not an idiot. Okay. I question his motives and his knowledge of what's. I mean, he's not a young man. He's about 73 years old. He's he's a little out of it, and he's got more money than whatever. There's another guy in this country. His name is Vuzi. I can't think of what his surname is. He happens to be a young black guy who's done really well. An investor, an entrepreneur, brilliant guy. He calls this ANC government out on everything, and they don't like it. Like one of our own calling us out. Well, that's the point of free speech. That's the point of free speech. And he's a smart guy. I mean, when I grow up, I want to be like a quarter of him. He's amazing. Brilliantly smart guy. Vuzi.
What part of you do you want to be a quarter of? No, never mind. Go ahead. So.
Don't go there. Don't. Can we just keep it above the belt now?
Above the belt? Okay.
But here's what he said. He said, this is from him now. He said, if Ramaphosa was a genuine billionaire, because Ramaphosa was gifted a lot of things by essentially wealthy white folk from beforehand. Oh, I guess I wanted to give him they wanted a stake in the new government. That's what people do. I mean, it's like if you're wealthy, you buy a piece of the government, like Zuckerberg has done. You want a piece of the government.
Yeah.
So that's
like Elon Musk.
I get it.
We got it.
I get it. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with it. Actually, if I had
Right.
billions and I wanted to have my say, I would buy a piece of the government too. What did Musk? $270 million, which is nothing to him, right? So that's fine. He could do that. But so that's how Ramaphosa got in, and that's fine. Okay, good. That's okay. I don't have a problem with that. I would have taken the money too, for doing nothing. But he said, if Ramaphosa was a genuine businessman, if he was a genuine billionaire, he would have grown. He would have grown that. He would have grown that. He would have lost a bit of it, grown it. There would have been a cyclical growth, right? He would have moved up though. One thing I do know about creation, there's dips and ebbs, but if you know what you're doing, you go up, you grow, right?
Ebbs and flows. That's what wealth does. It ebbs and flows.
Stock market crashes notwithstanding, you tend to go up, and that's good. He's done nothing. He's literally sat there and ebbed down, and there's been no excitement, no action really on his level of wealth. So Vusi would tell you he's a billionaire in terms of what he has, not what he is. There's a difference, and that's quite telling. So you've got these guys. The reason I say that is a proper billionaire, a man who understands money, how it's made. And I'm not saying I do, how it's made, how to lose it, how to grow it, what it does, what money can do.
Right.
He would. Well, first of all, he probably wouldn't be some smart people, but he would understand why South Africa is in the situation it is, and he would stop using race baiting bullshit to explain the failures. It's got nothing to do with race. It never has. It's never had anything to do with race from 1994. They've had the keys. They could have built something. They have not, and they need someone to blame. And there we go. And the opportunity was lost because we finally had a voice in the White House. And instead of it being an accurate voice, it was a bullshit voice. So now, quite rightly, you've got folks certainly from across the US and Europe going, so they jump on either side. They don't have all the facts.
That's actually not true. They don't care.
They take a position. They take a position that is on. Well, no one sits in the middle. I guarantee.
No, but my point is that the American public doesn't care. If you ask anybody in the American general populace what's going on in South Africa, they're going to be, first of all, they don't know where South Africa is. They'll probably think it's in Europe. The name doesn't give it away. And most of the people don't have a clue. So, most of the people see like whatever.
But the point is, Steve, why would
that's not really true.
There's no need for them.
No, that's not true. I follow everything because I like that. But you have to follow what's going on globally because that's what's going to tell you what's going to happen economically and everything else on the planet. So most people don't. Most people don't listen to someone who says, "Oh, here's what's really going on," or read the articles. So when, and most people back in the day, when the president said X, they went, "Oh, the president." Now when he says it, it's all a joke. The problem is it's kind of like his apprenticeship program. You had Zelensky, you had the Canada. So everybody sits there, lets Trump go on, and then you can just see they don't care. The reason, to go back to your other point, the reason that he would never do that to Putin is Putin would tell him to shut the fuck up. So Zelensky's hand in hat trying to get weapons to keep his country alive. Your president doesn't give a rat's fucking ass what happens. The Canadian guy was very nice. He wanted to tell Trump to go fuck himself, and he didn't. And that's fine. But until you get a strong man in the White House, I don't mean on our side, I mean a visitor, and Trump goes off on a tangent, and you're going to finally, some world leaders just going to pretty much have enough and go, you know what? You're full of shit. Fuck you, and just leave. And that's it. But none of them have the balls for some reason because we're nothing. I mean, like this tariff stuff, everything we're doing is screwing up everything. China is who they're all bowing down to now. We've lost that. So Americans, you hear the South African thing, they're like, yeah, great, they're killing each other. Great. Oh, great. We're going to get 10,000 of them. Do they have money? Cool. Boom. We got Elon. I mean, he came illegally, but we got Elon, and they're all going to be like Elon. All right, great. The problem is nobody cares because they're all worried about their little world, and nobody really cares what goes on anywhere else. And that's sad. So, I mean, I'm glad you explained it all, which is very cool. But for the most people, they don't know.
I don't disagree with you at all. I don't think they care. But I take the view, and I've lived there. I've spoken to people.
Right.
I've been to 31 states. I hope to get to the other 19.
Right.
Or could it be 20?
No, it's not for sale. Prince Charles said that yesterday.
Yeah, it's
Prince
not for
Charles
sale.
said Canada is not for sale.
What did Mark Carney
Yeah.
say? Mr. President, there are some places that are for sale, and there's some that are not. Like Buckingham Palace, like Canada, it's not for sale.
Right.
I do find though that King Charles's visit was the timing was extraordinary, and I know why they did it, to just go we this is Canada.
Yep.
You're America, we're Canada. Not the same as you. And there's a lot that one can say about that. But no, for me, Stephen, it's disappointing. I know why people don't care. Look, when I lived there, I'll be full disclosure. I got into what I would call a New York stroke American mindset.
Right.
And what it told me is that I didn't have to care. I don't have to care. Mm-hmm. You can say what you like about America, and I've said this before. For all its faults and whatever, it's still one of the best countries. It is. It's run very well. I'm not talking about the presidency. I'm not talking about stuff. The ordinary, the shops, the way people, the service. You can moan about your service as much as you like. It's better than anything I've encountered anywhere. The service is great. You go into stores, kids understand what they got to do. The level of education is high. There is a confidence, sometimes not deserved, but there's a confidence in a lot of people, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing when you really don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but you still think you do. But that's not representative of many people that I visited. I found New York to be it was like a utopia for me. Was it perfect? Fuck no. But it was so real. It's one of the most real places I've ever been. A bit like this place, actually. There's a reality between the two countries that's shared. I know they're different, but on some levels they're not.
That's because in New York we just speak our mind.
I like to think that New Yorkers, if they don't give a shit, they'll go, I don't give a shit.
We do.
They won't play a game that they think is bullshit. If the guy says, if you say to a guy, what do you think of the Middle East? And he says, I don't fucking know. Where's the Middle East? Fuck you. Give me my coffee. He doesn't care. He's not going to pretend that he's something he's not. And that's, I'm not saying all New Yorkers, but certainly that was my experience. People don't have time for that. There's money to be made. There's stuff to be done. There's reality to be lived. They don't give a, it's not that they don't give a shit. It's that if I'm going to do something, I'll do it. If I'm not going to do it, I fucking won't do it. And that's it. Done.
And to your point, though, most New Yorkers,
if it's important to me, I'll find out. If it's not, I won't.
But most New Yorkers are tied globally, so we actually do worry about the world. Like I said, when we were trying to do business in your country, and you know that story, we were like, "This bullshit." So I kind of try to keep my fingers in every pot around the globe. I may not know everything, but enough that if someone says, "Hey, there's something going on here we should look at," at least I'm like, oh, okay, I know that region. I know this. That's what's going on there. We need to look into it more or not. So I try to do that. So, but most Americans don't, because they're worried about, like, Johnny's got to go to school. How they're going to feed the kids. So that's not their thing. And that's totally fine. But that's what I'm saying. So when they make these statements in the White House, other than people going, oh my God, that's terrible. Oh, what's for dinner? That's it. I mean, so I'm just saying, and it doesn't do anything. I mean, Trump's trying to come across as I'm not sure what, and your guy's just going, this is awesome. So nobody's really, it's like you're going to the White House to be, it's like he's like Don Rickles. He's like, but Don Rickles was actually funny. He's like Don Rickles. He's just like trying to belittling, he's like belittling you, and you can't say anything because he's the president. But but you notice he won't do that to Putin or Xi, or like guys that like wouldn't put up with it, because he knows if he did that to them, they would say something in the White House, or as they did when they said we're talking to China on the tariffs. China's like, no, you're not. We're not talking to you about anything. So they'll call them out. So they can only do what they can do. So
I would love it if Putin was in the White House in that chair, and Don like pulled out all these videos of Ukraine and stuff. I would.
Oh, he won't do that.
Oh my God. No, I won't. But can you imagine if he did? What Putin would do?
Be funny. Putin would leave.
He would. He would just get up and walk out. He'd say, "Well,
Yeah.
this is not what." He would babble something in Russian. He would
Yeah.
gesticulate to his people, and they'd leave. And they'd say, "Well," and they say,
Yeah.
and Donald would be like, "Hey, Vlad, where you going?" And he would just ignore him, and he'd walk out the room. He wouldn't even
That's
get
what
angry.
Zelensky.
He wouldn't.
That's what
He wouldn't
Zelensky
even get angry.
done. When Zelensky was there and the vice
Yeah.
president was going off on whatever bullshit he was saying, Zelensky
Man.
should have said, "Gentlemen, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day," and just left. That would have done
Yeah, but
more than anything.
but I understood why he didn't, because he's in a tough situation. The man is in the middle of a war, and he knows it's not about him. He's trying to I admire his patience. Look, you can argue with his method, way he whatever, but I mean, they'd say, "Why did you wear a suit?" Because he's in a war.
Yeah.
And the optics in his country is important, not in the US. That's what looks more important. Not going to get into that, but why? Because I don't know. All I know about Ukraine is media and YouTube and whatever. So I know for a fact, and given my experience with the way the media has covered South Africa, that tells me, okay, so really no one knows what the fuck they're talking about. That's the truth.
Unless you're
and
there.
like I said,
Boots on
it's
the
the
ground.
meal. The meal is the bullshit, and the salt and pepper is probably the facts. There are so few facts. Now, if this situation and the way it's been reported is anything to go by, then I'm thinking, well, then I don't actually know what's going on in Ukraine or Gaza or anywhere else. Not really.
Yeah.
There's too many other interests involved. Too many biases. There's too much. It may be true. It may be not. I have no way of knowing. But I can tell you, as someone who's living in a flavor of the month news story right now in the US, I can tell you right now, 80, 85%, possibly 90% of what I've seen reported is utter horseshit. It's the biggest lot of bullshit I've ever heard. And it's very disingenuous to the message that actually needs to go out. But then, like you said, people don't give a fuck. And I go, okay, they don't give a fuck. Let's stop talking. Let's stop worrying, which is sad because there are, like I mentioned to you in the other podcast or this one, no, the previous one, on my show today was a woman was sentenced to life for trafficking her own daughter, and she won't tell people what happened to her or anything, and it's a terrible thing. But that's not uncommon here. There's a lot of that stuff going on, and it's going on around the world, and that's the kind of things. There are bad things in the world. There are bad things here, but when you take one thing and you twist it into some politically weaponized agenda bullshit talking point, then you look like an ass, and then everything you say gets discredited, even though it might be valid. And that's the problem I had with that. He was talking the biggest lot of shit. 5 minutes, and you can tell, what's all this death. What the fuck is that? What it's insulting. Can you imagine if I came to the White House and came up with some bullshit story about Vietnam or the Gulf War and how America was killing people? Death. They'd fucking throw me out in my ear. Rightly so.
No, it depends what Gulf. If it's the Gulf of America, they would applaud you. Just so you're good.
How disrespectful. We want you to respect us, but we're not going to respect you. Fuck that. And this is the problem. And the thing is, Stephen, I don't think this, my lived experience. Let me say my lived experience, because people say, how do you know? Okay, my lived experience. The several years I was there, the states I went to, I think I got some idea of what America's about. I will say this to you, though. The more I traveled, the more people I met in different states, I started to realize I knew more and more about less and less, or was it less and less about more and more. So by the time I left the US, I went, fuck it, I know nothing. I know nothing. It's such a varied country. When I arrived in the US, I thought, yeah, I know what it is. I can do the accent. I know the people. Yeah, I got this. I know the history. I know how the Constitution was formed. I know how the states got their shapes. Well, I watched that show. I've got it all figured out. And the more I traveled throughout the country, I went, this is like South Africa, a bigger version. But the more I travel, I go, wow, there's no such thing as an American. There's so many different shapes, sizes, colors, cultures, food, weather. It's an impossible thing to identify. An American. What the fuck is that? What is an American? Values, culture, religion, point of view, political. There isn't one. It's not homogenous. And that's great, by the way. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't presume to go on some podcast and lecture people about what their country is and what's going on in it, which is exactly what Trump was doing with Ramaphosa and making him look so good, which fucked the whole point of it up. That's the problem. And
welcome to America, we're a great country.
And now you've got a bunch of, and I'm just going to say it, you got your left wing, your right wing media, all fighting with each other for the crown. What do they say? They've got 2 brain cells and they're fighting for 3rd place. It's it's just, what was the insult? I'd love to deliver this to somebody, one of these idiots that come on the podcast and we know everything about South Africa. Oh yeah, and I go, you've never been here. Well, how the fuck would you know? And by the way, I am jealous of people who don't know you.
Listen, any of those idiots can come on here and debate you. It'll be fun. So, but no,
absolutely. But listen, let me be clear. I will debate what's happening here. I'm not going to debate what's going on in the US. I wouldn't even presume to. I've got a smattering of facts. I've got a smattering of experience. Do I have an opinion? I try not to, because I'll tell you, as I said to you, opinions are problematic if you don't have all the facts, because they lead to judgment, they lead to opinion, they lead to judgment.
Oh, the president
and
president.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I just wish he would. You know what the crazy thing for me about Trump is, and I can't believe I'm saying this. There are things about him that I agree with.
Yeah.
There are things about him that I agree
with. Yeah.
There are things that I go, absolutely, Don, good stuff. I like the fact that you're accessible to people. I don't think Biden should have been nominated again. Blah, 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 blah. And so we can go on. There are things about him. I like the fact that Bill Maher went there and he seemed to be civil to him. And I'm going, why the fuck can't you be like that normally? But again, I wasn't in the dining room when Bill spoke to him, so I don't know what exactly was said. But the point is, you get this feeling. You get this feeling that it's almost like he's bipolar. So he'll be having a nice conversation, like him and President Ramaphosa having a nice conversation, and he goes, yeah, fuck it, let's turn off the lights, I'm going to show you some shit. And then the whole conversation got weird, and Donald got all worked up, and I'm going, who the fuck are you arguing with?
Mm-hmm.
This guy sitting next to you, that the president from South Africa hasn't like taken you on at all, but you're getting on your tangent. Look at that. Mm-hmm. He hasn't said anything. He's quietly disagreeing with you. And where is this, Mr. President? I'm not sure where this is. He was calm and relaxed. He looked, in my view, very calm. I'm like, who are you fighting with? What are you arguing with? And I almost think there's almost like I don't know, maybe he is bipolar. I'm not sure.
Or maybe he's bi. I don't know. I mean, it could go either way.
If you can have, if you can get a guy like, and I use Bill Maher as an example, because again, some things I like about him, some things I don't. Like most people, we don't like everything about everybody. I don't even like everything about my fucking self. So
I can see that. I got a list. So,
Correct. So he says he goes to the White House, he has a dinner there, and he reports back and he says, the guy was really nice. And I didn't feel threatened. I'm going, I'm sorry, who are we talking about? Well, that's pleasant. But then you get this guy goes to rallies and just blah, 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 blah. Can't we just have a nice, calm, older man who comes across as presidential and has a team to handle? He shouldn't have been handling those things that he was handling with Ramaphosa. Hi, Mr. President, it's love to have you. I know you've got some issues in your country. We're going to discuss those. My senior advisor tells me that you have that there are some political issues. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to discuss this in private. We're going to discuss trade. I don't know.
He's got no adults in the room. What advisor? He's got Marco Rubio. He's got the vice president. They got nobody with an IQ point there. So he has no advisors. It's just whatever, it's like the emperor's new clothes. Please. I don't know.
I will say
it's child.
I will say the final thing, which is interesting, is as I was finishing my show and driving home to come and do this, we're running reports. You probably know this, but we're running reports in our station that the judges, international relations judges or whatever, in the judiciary in the US have blocked Trump's effort to instill tariffs. And then, of course, the White House is biting back. And I will say this, my scant knowledge of how the US government, the way it all works is the three branches of government, and again, scant knowledge, but I know each one is supposed to be a check and balance on the other. So the executive branch is not more powerful than the judiciary and the legislative, whatever. The point is, the judiciary is now calling out the executive branch, and then you have the executive branch folk going, no, we can do whatever the fuck we want. You mustn't stop the president. And they saying, no, Congress is supposed to do all these things. So rather just follow the procedure and do it in Congress. You can't just hold up a fancy bullshit chart and say, we're going to tariff all these people. It doesn't work like that. You're fucking on a stroke president. That's not how it works. How do we know that? It's literally in the Constitution. There, it's law. It's our law. Okay, the law. You know the law, the thing that you swore to uphold. And I just go, when did America get a king? Looks like you've got a king, not a president. Anyway.
Well, here's the funny part about it. The little blonde chick that we got from North Korea, that's his press spokesperson. She the other day, a reporter asked her a question. She goes, we're the executive branch. And
I know.
And she goes, and the executive branch can do what it wants. And I'm thinking, no,
it can't.
we have a thing called the Constitution. We're not a monarchy. And so, no, that's technically wrong. And the reporter's question was good, and you blew her off. Like I said, at some point, there's going to have to be a reckoning. And however it comes, these people, either Trump is going to stay in power until he's 100 and then dies, and he'll go to one of his kids. Hopefully it goes to the blonde chick, because the rest of them are idiots. And there'll be no reckoning. Or the Democrats will come and win in 2008, and then we'll have a civil war because the Republicans won't want to give up power. But at some point, there's probably going to be a reckoning, and it won't be good, because down the road, people are going to look at these people like they're going to look at them as like the 1930s people, going, you're fucking idiots. Like, you're just stupid.
That press secretary thing is, she's younger than my daughter. So just to give you an idea, she's younger than my daughter.
But if you line 10 of her up and you blow in her ear, you make a good wind tunnel. So.
But seriously, Stephen, I mean, she is. I look at her and I go, I'm honestly looking for, I don't know, Stephen Miller, or because I don't think it's Donald Trump. I think Stephen Miller might be directing
or
her.
Bannon. Bannon.
Bannon. I mean, okay, we're going to wrap now, but I will say this: the thing that really is troubling when you watch her is no sense of humility. Like, let me take your question, Stephen. You could say something I disagree with, and I go, okay, Stephen, with respect, I disagree with you, and blah blah blah, and thanks very much. You raised a valid point, but this is whatever. But she goes, no, why did you ask that question? That's a shitty question. We can do whatever the fuck we want. And I go, grow up, you silly little child. That's a journalist right there who's asked you a valid question. You may not agree with it, but can you respond, please, like a fucking adult? I'm sorry, that is not an appropriate question. Thank you. Just cool your fucking jets. But then when you realize she's actually a baby, you go, well, that's why. She needs a good 20 years on her.
Stephanopoulos, when George Stephanopoulos was working for Clinton, he was the same age, and he handled it perfectly. D.D. Myers, same thing. Because we got her from North Korea. In North Korea, they can talk to the journalists like that and then shoot them. Here, she can talk to them like that, but we can't shoot them. So that's the problem. So I'm sure it'll be a new thing he'll sign into law.
What I find extraordinary is, and as I say, I'm just seeing it the way it is. He was very clear. Trump was very clear about he was going to protect freedom of speech. I seem to recall him saying that when he was ready. We're going to have freedom of speech. That's very important. It's part. I think it's the first thing in the fucking Constitution. Freedom of speech. Now he wants to limit it. And anytime anybody says something he disagrees with, he goes, "That you're a shitty reporter. You're a loser. That's a shitty question." Can you just fucking grow up and say, "I disagree with you. Thank you." Or if you've got nothing nice to say, I'm not prepared to answer that at this time. Thank you. Next question.
I'm sorry. That would mean we have an adult in the Oval Office. We don't have that. So no. But that's cute that you think that. That's nice.
Stephen, he can say the same thing without being a shit about it or being a child. This is what a teenager says. Oh, some very bad things are happening in Ukraine, and I'm not happy with Putin, and I'm going to write him a strong letter.
Oh, right. But
what's he going to do in 2 weeks?
An adult would talk like, "Hey, that's a great question. Let me get back to you," or this or that. When you're
Yes.
5, you're throwing a tantrum, which his whole administration does, and that's a different story. So when you throw your tantrums, this is what you get. You get the blonde chick from North Korea. You got the president, like we both said. A lot of what he does, we agree with. Not the way he does it. A lot of what he says is just sort of like, dude, don't speak. JD Vance, for his birthday, we bought him a 2OF. We're sending him a new couch. And Marco Rubio and the rest of these guys are just like Eustace's tits on a bull. So there you go. That's all I can say.
Useless as tits on a bull. I love that.
There you go. And with that, we should end the show.
It's just so unnecessary.
I know.
End the show. That's it.
That's in there. Before we're going another 6-hour run. People, are we back next Wednesday? We're back next Wednesday. We will be here with Mr. Rob Vega, and we will come up with another topic that will get him going through 5 or 6 hours. And we will see you all then. Cheers, everybody.
The resident's calling me.
Thank you so much for listening to this Roald Woods, Rob Vega, whatever the hell he wants to call himself, fellow. You know, this podcast thing, it makes him feel very important, and he's a difficult fellow as it is to deal with. So thank you so much for putting up with him, and do take care.